Imagine sitting down to a warm meal of rye bread. Hours later, your skin feels like it's on fire. You step into the street and begin to dance. You hallucinate terrifying visions, convulsing violently. You cannot stop. You dance for days until your feet bleed, your heart gives out, and you die. Today, we are exploring one of the most terrifying mysteries in human history. The deadly bread dance. We're going to trace this historical chaos from the witch trials of the Middle Ages, all the way to the accidental invention of LSD. But more importantly, we are telling this story to teach you a Nobel Prize-winning concept called Prigogine's Principle. How to take the absolute worst, most chaotic breakdowns in your life, pump them full of analytical energy, and forge them into an unstoppable mindset. Welcome back to Thought Trek, your digital odyssey into the endless realms of knowledge and discovery. I'm your host, and this week we are exploring the architecture of chaos. Prigogine's Principle states that in chemistry, physics, and human life, disruption and chaos are not the end of your story. They are actually the fertile raw materials for a higher level of order, but only if you continuously pump energy and learning into the system. Let's dive into the history of the deadly bread to see exactly how this works. The year is 1518. You are a citizen of Strasbourg. A woman named Frau Trophia steps into the street and begins to twist, twirl, and convulse. Within a week, dozens join her. Within a month, hundreds are dancing involuntarily. The town is plunged into mass hysteria. People are suffering sudden strokes and heart attacks, their bodies completely hijacked. A century later, across the ocean in Salem, Massachusetts, young girls experience similar violent fits, claiming invisible entities are biting and pinching them. Absolute terrifying chaos, and how does society react? They freeze. They look at the chaos and blame the supernatural. They point fingers at demons, burn innocent women at the stake, and pray for it to stop. But Prigogine's Principle tells us that if a system is in chaos and you do not pump productive energy into it, the system collapses, and collapse it did. Thousands died over centuries because humanity refused to investigate the rubble. It wasn't until the late 19th century that scientists finally decided to force energy into this historical nightmare. They stopped hunting demons and started hunting data. Through relentless investigation, they traced the hallucinations and convulsions not to magic, but to the bakery. The culprit was Claviceps purpurea, or ergot, a toxic fungus that infects damp rye crops. But the story doesn't end with a diagnosis. It explodes into modern science. Enter a Swiss chemist named Albert Hofmann in 1938. Hofmann wasn't content just knowing ergot was deadly. He wanted to force this chaotic poisonous fungus into a higher state of order. He spent years synthesizing the compounds of the ergot fungus, trying to create a respiratory stimulant. Then came the fateful day in 1943. Working in his lab, Hofmann accidentally absorbed a microscopic drop of his 25th ergot synthesis through his fingertips. I perceived an uninterrupted stream of fantastic pictures, Hofmann later wrote. Extraordinary shapes with intense, kaleidoscopic play of colors. Hofmann had just accidentally invented LSD-25. Suddenly, Hofmann was experiencing the exact same chaotic hallucinations as the peasants in 1518, and the girls in Salem. He famously rode his bicycle home in a state of absolute terrifying cosmic chaos. But unlike the people of the Middle Ages, Hofmann was a scientist. He didn't blame demons. He pumped analytical energy into his own terror. He meticulously documented his heart rate, his visions, and his mental state. Because Hofmann forced order onto this chaos, humanity suddenly had a chemical key to the brain. Studying how LSD interacted with the mind led scientists directly to the discovery of serotonin receptors. The devastating chaos of the dancing plagues was transmuted, over centuries, into modern neuropharmacology. This single chaotic thread gave birth to the SSRIs, antidepressants, and trauma therapies that save millions of lives today. So how do we apply this to your life today? When your personal world falls into a dancing plague, a brutal breakup, a financial wipeout, or a severe bout of depression, you are standing in raw chaos. Here is your slightly controversial, 3-step guide to applying Prigogine's Principle today. Step 1. Stop blaming demons. When your life is a mess, stop blaming bad luck, toxic energy, your zodiac sign, or an unfair universe. Blaming the supernatural is what got people burned at the stake. Acknowledge the chaos is here and realize it is just raw material waiting for you to process it. Step 2. Put the chaos in a lab. Treat your mental and emotional breakdowns as cold, hard chemical and environmental data. Ask yourself brutally honest questions. What are you eating? How much are you sleeping? Are the people around you feeding you toxic bread? Strip away the emotion and look at the variables of your life like a scientist dissecting a fungus. Step 3. Synthesize a cure. Extract the data from your lowest points. If late-night scrolling gives you crippling anxiety, that's your ergot. Use that painful data to engineer a rigid, customized daily routine. Pump relentless daily effort into waking up early, working out, and protecting your peace. You are forcing your chaotic mind into a higher state of order. The people of 1518 were victims of their environment because they didn't have the tools to understand their chaos. But you do. Whether it's a devastating historical plague or a personal life crisis, the architecture of chaos remains the same. Disruption is never the end of your story. It is the exact ingredient you need to engineer a stronger, smarter, and more resilient version of yourself. If this story changed the way you view the chaos in your own life, hit that like button and subscribe to Thought Trek. We are building a community of thinkers and lifelong learners who don't back down from the hard lessons. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for part 2 of our weekend story series. Keep questioning, keep pumping energy into your systems, and keep trekking. We'll see you next time.